Howdy ho there, folks. How are we doing today? Hopefully you're all doing absolutely peachy keen, fantastic, all that good stuff. Hopefully you're having a wonderful day full of all kinds of blessings of the Lord. And today I want to talk a little bit about Bhakti and how much I like Bhakti Yoga as a path. And Bhakti, if you don't know, just means devotion, loving devotion. And just to comment on the video for just a second, I did decide to make an astrologer and try out the magic in Elden Ring, because I was having a decent amount of fun playing with a magic character for the first time in Scholar of the First Sin. But, so let's get to it. Bhakti Yoga, for those of you who don't know, basically is just the path of loving devotion. It's a path where basically what you do is you try to foster and grow your love for God, and, kind of that will come along with certain other things, like you might have dispassion for the world and discernment and all that, but what you're really trying to do is grow your love for God. And, we might talk about the other paths, Jnana Yoga, which is the path of knowledge, which is, basically it's like the very Advaitin path of, I am Brahman, and then you go from there and you try to make that realization a reality in your life. Raja Yoga, you're talking about like, you're sitting down and you're doing lots of meditation, lots of techniques to try and, separate yourself from the body and realize that you're not the body, you're not the mind, that you are in fact higher consciousness. Karma yoga, that's where you divinize all your different actions. And each of these requires a little bit of qualifications, especially Jnana yoga. You want to have discernment, you want to have dispassion for the world, you want to have the 6 jewels, you want to have like calm mind, all these different things. There's all these different things that come with Jnana yoga. With Raja yoga, you have to learn the proper meditation techniques, the proper breathing techniques, the proper way to sit and be, and all this other stuff. But with Bhakti yoga, I think it really shows the mercy and the love of God, because it doesn't require anything. You don't have to do anything ahead of time. You just go straight for it. And I personally have found that this path has probably been the most effective for me. Meditation is still good, and I still, use mantra to, try to realize Brahman. But, sometimes I sit there and I think about it, and I can't help but think that, the sweetest path, as far as I'm able to tell, is the one where I get the closest to the Divine Mother. I, love worshiping. I love doing puja every day. I have these little candles that are actually made of ghee, which is pretty cool, and I light those every day. And, I ask the Divine Mother, and, I'll ask her for discernment, things like that, occasionally. But the thing that always, every single time I ask her for, is for her to increase my love and increase my devotion to her. Increase it so that I can always come back to her and always remember her. Because one of the beautiful things about Bhakti is that it actually kind of, it's very helpful on any path you're on. You're still on the path of Jnana Yoga? Well, you know what? If you embrace the path of Bhakti Yoga as well, if you use Bhakti Yoga, it will actually get you further on your path of Jnana Yoga. If you want to meditate better, if you put a little bit of Bhakti in there, it can really help you out. Karma Yoga, you're doing selfless action to help those around you. Well, if you add a little bit of Bhakti Yoga to it, it actually makes it a lot easier, and it makes it easier to give up the results of your actions so that you can go forward. And what I've truly found is that devotion is just so refreshing and wonderful. And one of the nice things about devotion is that it's easy. Jnana Yoga is the direct path. It can take you straight to Brahman and take you straight to knowledge of God. That's great. However, it's very hard for a lot of people. A lot of people have a really hard time getting into it. Same thing with Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga can really take it out of folks, and they really need time to sit there and develop and things like that. But with Bhakti Yoga, one of the great things about it is that you don't need any of that. You just need to take a little bit of time to worship God. And what's fun is, what I've found with Bhakti Yoga is that I incorporate everything into my worship of God. You know what? I'm playing Warhammer, I'm playing a game, and I just occasionally I'll just talk to God, and I'll just be like, what can I do in this game that would make me a better bhakta? What can I do to show my devotion inside of this video game? How do I make this about God? And I do that all the time. And some people think it's kind of crazy. It's like, oh man, I'm trying to play my Warhammer game, I'm not trying to do the Bhakti yoga. But it's like, well, you can take anything and turn it towards God with Bhakti Yoga. You can take anything and turn that longing towards God. It's like, oh, I was watching a video on this, and I might link it below. Swami Sarvapriyanda has a bunch of videos on the way of love, and he mentions in one of those videos that there's a story where Sri Ramakrishna, someone was asking him, like, how do I get rid of lust? And then Sri Ramakrishna said, why do you want to get rid of lust? Just turn it towards God. And I think that that's like a really great attitude to have. You know, it's kind of hard if you sit there as a jnani trying to just like, be dispassionate and trying to kind of push the world away and all these other things. But with Bhakti Yoga, especially Tantra, the way the Tantra people approach it, of kind of embracing the world, but embracing it in the way that you're turning everything towards God. And it's like, Tantra just says that, lust is not, like love and lust and things like that are not necessarily evil. You just need to turn them towards God. And you have all of these different ways of doing that, and we have all these desires and things like that, and they can be very difficult to overcome. But with Bhakti, we don't have to worry so much about overcoming them. What we do is we realize that we can take those desires and we can turn them towards the Lord. When you're having a difficult day, you can actually just go ahead and, instead of resenting things and getting it bottled up, you can actually just open up your heart to God. And because you love God and pour out, like, Lord, this is really bothering me today. Why did I have to go through this? And you can just do that. And it's kind of amazing how well that can work. Or, when you pray, you can do the mechanical ritual stuff, but it's much better to take some loving devotion and simply invest yourself in getting closer to God and be like, Lord, I want to get past this, and ask sincerely and pray for that loving kindness of the Lord to, kind of shine through you. And, this doesn't necessarily mean worshiping any particular way. I think that Bhakti is very broad. You see, we have, especially in like Hindu circles, there's a lot of people who focus very much on like, well, how do they do it in India? But you don't have to do it like that. I want you to think about how many saints, like Meister Eckhart. Meister Eckhart had never been to India. Meister Eckhart didn't practice the same way that folks in India did. Meister Eckhart instead prayed in a way in which he opened up his heart and realized that the ground of his being and the ground of God were one and the same. Rumi didn't go to India to learn a bunch of Hindu meditation techniques. Rumi embraced the teachings in Islam, and specifically of Sufism, and found non-duality there. He didn't need to go to a specific person to do it a specific way. But if you do want some methods, one that I've personally found very effective is mantra, is sitting there and chanting the name of God. Like if you have an Ishta Devata, you have your individual selected image of God, or the form that you like to see God in or worship God in. I have three, with my main focus still being Ma Kali, because I really feel God as the divine mother there. But you can sit there and you can just chant the name of God, and chant Kali, Krishna, Waheguru, Allah, whatever you want. You can do any of those things and it will still work for you. God is so open and so benevolent. You can see, if you look throughout history, that there are these great bhaktas who would never have called themselves a bhakta because they'd never heard the word. But these people who truly love the Lord and really love that understanding that they got from being close to the Lord. And those things are very important for us to foster and to try to keep in our hearts as much as we possibly can. What we need to do on a regular basis is just, thank God for everything we've been given, and, just occasionally just come back and worship at God's lotus feet. And, sometimes with bhakti, this can lead to, or this not can lead to, but it can be very effective, for instance, to visualize the perfect form of the Lord, and, visualize sitting at their feet and, asking for help from the Lord, and asking for, like, they have this ocean of bliss at their feet, so you ask them to, like, give you some of that, so that you can get closer to them and be one with them. And And all throughout your day, what you should do is just do little practices of devotion. And that's not to say that you should be like, okay, well, now it's time for puja. So in the middle of my workday, I'm going to get out my little statue, or I'm going to get out some flowers or some candles. And you don't necessarily have to do that. But just being with the Lord in every moment and asking for that devotion to carry over into everything. Like sometimes I'll be walking around, just kind of out of the blue, I'll just start to think about Ma Kali and her glory and like the wonderful way she communes with her followers and the ways that we can all have these like really powerful spiritual experiences thanks to her. We can all engage in the path of bhakti yoga at any time. We don't have to have all these different tools and things like that. And I personally found that like just going throughout my day and just occasionally just calling back to the Lord no matter what I'm doing, and having it just be this constant presence. But one of the big things about this is that you're fostering love. You're fostering that desire. It's like, people on the path of jnana yoga, they're like, oh, well, I want to have dispassion for the world. But, by turning that passion from the world towards God, you'll naturally get better and better at stepping outside of the world and getting back to God in all of her manifold forms. You can often find that you no longer feel this pull towards the world, because as you follow and as you pray more and more naturally, you will find yourself going towards God in just about any situation. And you'll find more and more that, if things like lust and greed and all this stuff is bothering you, by embracing the Lord and embracing that path of loving devotion and taking your desires and turning them towards God, you will naturally gain dispassion for the world, because you know that there's a much greater pleasure there, and you can see that infinite ocean of bliss is always there. And you can also see that, the sweetness of the Lord, the gigantic pile of sugar that is the Lord, is always there, and you're always able to access it. So remember, turn your heart towards God and always try to embrace God and remember God no matter what you're doing. Okie dokie, artichoke. Remember, the path of Bhakti Yoga is really good for that. And of course, if you're more interested in the other paths, don't forget that Bhakti Yoga can still be useful on those other paths as well. That a little bit of devotion can take you a long way. And it might start small, but it will grow real big if you let it. Okie dokie, artichoke? Okay. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you all have a great day, and I hope that you know that I love you and God loves you, and bye, love you, bye. Have a great one. Put some devotion in your heart.